Sean Collins. They want a smaller guy with speed who can evade and get off the bump and run, and they like Randall Hill an awful lot. Now, moving down, I know they like Brett Favre, and I know they like Randall Hill. If they feel they can move down and get that guy, they will probably try to do that.
Mel, this is your top 10 guys. Now, if it's the best athlete available, all right.
The 1991 NFL Draft was held from April 21st to the 22nd at the Marriott Marquis in New York City, New York.
They're not going to go with. Maryland, gone. Turner, gone. Rocket, gone. Tackles, they have a pretty good offensive line, albeit a little older. Mike Ken has been in the league a long, long time. And then let's turn it, well, we missed, 6 through 10 there. So, well, we're all over here. Well, there are a lot of names that you'll be seeing throughout the day here on the draft. You're keeping it a secret, 6 through 10? What, can't you tell us?
Chris, you're talking about Ken. He's coming off his best year as a pro. Chris Hinton at mid-season, after he got himself into top shape, was playing as well as any
Bill
offensive
Fralick,
tackle.
oh, by the way.
Fralick at guard, outstanding. So they have a need at wide receiver. They have Risen and really nobody to complement him that Jerry prefers, which is home run hitters. They need that quarterback, and they're not going to come out of this first round, I don't believe, without a Favre, without a Nagel. And that's why I think trading down is enticing to Jerry in Atlanta. And like I said, those would be the two guys. I don't see Kroll because, like I said, Darian Conner is a guy that's really going to be spot defense in Atlanta.
All right, this is all speculation. There are two things that we know for sure. Russell Maryland has been drafted by the Cowboys. Eric Turner's been drafted by the Cleveland Browns. They're both sitting in Newport Beach, California, with big smiles on their faces, as they should. And Mark Schwartz doesn't even have a bad smile right now. Good morning.
Good morning, Chris. I can't believe my luck. Here I am sitting in the middle of this, the first two draft picks in the 1991 draft, and Team Steinberg has a glow on their faces. First of all, you, Russell, you're going back home. Jimmy Johnson, Dave Wanstadt, Coach Butch Davis, all the guys from Dallas, from Miami, are with Dallas.
Yes, they are. I'm very, very excited about it. It's funny how life goes around in circles, and I can expect good things to happen. Everything is positive, and I'd like to thank the Dallas Cowboys organization, Jerry Jones, Coach Johnson, and Mike McGwire, and this is the happiest day of my life.
All right, the other immediate impact player is going to Cleveland to the dog pound. I mean, Eric Turner, you're from Los Angeles. You played with UCLA. Can you handle the cold?
Well, some I'm have to adjust to, but I know the dog pound to keep him warm.
There's great fan support in Cleveland, but you know, the thing about the Browns is over the years, some people have said they won't play in Cleveland. Other people like Bernie Kosar have been excited, and that got the owner, Art Modell, excited. What indications did Cleveland have from you about that?
Well, they knew that I was excited, to play for them. They've had great defensive backs there, from the late Don Rogers from UCLA, Hanford Dixon, Frank Minifield. I was excited to go there and play.
Lee Steinberg, a three-peat for you, 3 straight years of #1 picks.
The most wonderful part of it is the quality of both of their characters, and Jeff George, Troy Aikman. It's wonderful people.
Now, for all the Testarossas in Toronto, would you have let either of these guys go up and play in the CFL?
Everyone has to do what's right for themselves. To me, if you are a premier athlete and you want to test yourself, you do it in the National Football League. It is the show. No offense to the Canadian Football League, but more people live within 50 miles of New York than live in all of Canada.
Yeah, but you're talking about $26 million.
Mm-hmm.
These guys aren't going to see that much.
You've given us a wonderful hurdle to jump over. Thank you for the challenge.
All right, a great deal to jump over. Team Steinberg with the top 2 picks in the draft, and now let's go back to Chris in New York.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, Mark, thank you. So Lee Steinberg, known as the quarterback's agent, and that's Jeff George last year, and year before that, Troy Aikman. Hey, who needs a quarterback to get a #1 pick? And Lee says, well, I could branch out and do other positions. The pick is on its way up. The card is on its way up to the podium here in New York. Atlanta Falcons picking 3rd here in the NFL draft. And if McGwire's done, and they keep the pick, which it looks like they have, I got to think Kroll.
Well, I'll tell you, it's tough. Like I said, Darian Conner's their guy. I know Kroll's been speculated Pickens. Todd Light they got off mainly because Jerry compared him to Luther Bradley, who he had in Detroit, and figured he's not tough enough in run support. So Herrock liked him, Jerry didn't.
Now we'll know.
The Atlanta Falcons select Bruce Pickens, defensive back, Nebraska. Next up, the Denver Broncos.
That tells me that the McGwire deal is not done, because Pickens was the next best cover guy as they had rated in the draft. That's why we floated him out there 15 minutes ago. Let's float down to Sewanee from Gary Danielson and get the word on the pick. Gary?
Well, Thanks, Chris. No, not necessarily about McGwire. Jerry, again, remember, he wanted to get 2 corners. The modern offenses are going to spread you out. It's not like the old days when the Raiders had Haynes and Hayes and they could blanket everybody, or Minifield and Dixon in Cleveland. You got to have 3 of them now. Jerry kind of won the argument here. I think Ken Harrock liked Todd Light. Jerry Glanville liked Pickens because he could come up and hit, and I think they took the guy they wanted in Pickens. Kind of an interesting thing here. They're going to have 3 cornerbacks that can play now man-to-man coverage if they get McGwire, and that's what Jerry likes with playing his defense. So now the question is, will they get Brett Favre in their next pick? Because that's the way they're headed. And you know, the disinformation continues in this draft. It's my first draft, and it's almost, let me get my props out here, Chris. It's almost like liar's poker here. You know, these guys give you a little bit of stuff here. Back to you, Chris. I've got 3 sevens.
Well, we have a full house of defensive backs thus far, Gary. In the top 3, we've all gone defense. 2 DBs gone already in 3 picks. The most defensive backs ever picked in the first round was in 1981, 6 of them. And who was one of them? That was Kenny Easley, Ronnie Lott, Dennis Smith, Hanford Dixon, Ted Watts, Bobby Butler. This just in, that was a pretty good class of defensive backs. This just in, Bruce Pickens, rising Mel, all throughout the last month, rising on the draft chart. Some people say Atlanta reached a little bit here, but for cover guy, was he definitely right there?
Well, Jerry likes speed. Offense, defensive, secondary, wants guys who can recover, and Pickens can. He ran that 4.41 at the combine, and since that time, he's moved way up. Probably a little too far, but still, in this draft, with not a super blue chipper at the top, you really can't say it's a reach. The guy is tough. He could even move inside the safety in the long run and be an ideal cover guy. I've been talking all year about the safeties in the NFL, the pure safety being phased out, with teams spreading the field with red guns and no huddles and run and shoots, and you really need almost a 4 cornerback situation in your backfield. Your safeties have to run and cover. We saw how Buffalo was exploited all year with that, with the slow safeties. And Pickens, if he did move inside, you would be ideal. You'd have McGwire and Sanders at the corners, move Pickens inside to handle those coverage responsibilities.
All right, so Bruce Pickens, the first of the 2 first-round selections for the Atlanta Falcons. Next up for the Pickens, the Denver Broncos. They're next on the clock. We'll be back to New York in a moment. Back in New York here at the Marriott Marquis, the Denver Broncos selecting, a little lower than they normally are accustomed to. They're the next ones up here in the draft, the 4th selection. So defense, defense, defense thus far. Joe, are you taking notes?
We'll break in.
Even McGwire, the offer is a 3rd-round pick, as we have mentioned before. That's what's on the table. Apparently, that's not quite done yet. But Timmy McGwire, who they spent a second for last year, Miami, to get him from San Francisco. You know, I'm going to break for a minute here before we discuss Pickens. Miami losing Timmy McGwire, he was a big part of that defense last year, didn't you think, Tommy?
Yeah, I think he was a big part of that defense, but they ran into problems that were more problems off the field than on the field. I don't think they had a problem with Timmy McGwire and his covering ability. I don't think you could, but I think that sometimes it depends on the kind of guy he's with, and you hear him say some things that are upsetting. I think he upset Dan Marino. That's probably as big a mistake as he made during the course of the year.
No, there's one bigger mistake to make, upsetting Don Shula. That would be about the bigger one. But that's not done yet. Now, so too many, if they do get McGwire, Deion Pickens, too many corners, too much of a jump here, Joe?
Never too many corners. I think in this, the way the game is played today, with the speed that everybody's going for outside, with the spreading out of the defenses, you need at least 3, maybe 4 corners. Mel brought up the most important point. I don't project Pickens as a starter right now, but he'll be utilized in a nickel situation to cover on the inside, but the slot guys right now are wide receivers on the inside. They're not covering tight ends or backs out of the backfield. He fits into that system very well. It's not too much pressure for a young man coming out of college to be a cornerback to have to play inside with a little help on either side. If he's a cornerback, he's got a little bit of moxie about him anyway, so I don't see him getting hurt being a rookie, being able to play in that system at all.
So Bruce Pickens, the pick by Atlanta, the first of their 2. They have more selections than anybody else in this draft, barring any trades now. They have 16 overall selections. The draft goes 12 rounds today and tomorrow. We won't be on for every one of those picks and every one of those rounds, but we'll be here till 6:30 Eastern time. So relax and talk some pro football with us. Talking pro football now, Robin Roberts and crew.
All right, thanks again, Chris. And Chris Mortensen is back with us. With Bruce Pickens now with the Falcons, will they still go after McGwire?
Absolutely. They were going to do this deal and take Bruce Pickens, and the surprising thing about it is they've got 2 cornerbacks now. What does that mean to Deion Sanders? And the Falcons are genuinely concerned that Deion Sanders has a real Major League Baseball career, and that's why they made that pick, and they'll still make the McGwire trade regardless.
Yeah, because Deion is playing very well with the Braves right now. He loves the Atlanta area, back with them. He's doing very well, so they have really reason to be concerned.
I don't think anybody took Deion's baseball career seriously last year. I think now they are, because he had an excellent spring training. He's playing very well with the big league Braves. And seriously, Bruce Pickens and Tim McGwire would help Jerry Glanville in that defense. They got to have cornerbacks to play that defense.
Okay, now, Fred, you're our man with the Rocket. Can't forget about that huge contract. We keep hearing all kinds of figures. What's the latest you hear on Rocket's contract in Canada?
I talked to somebody out of Bruce McNall's negotiating team, and he laid this scenario out to me, how this deal came about. And it looks like it may be $18 million, and here's how. It was 12 to 13
The first 6 selections of the draft were defensive players, the most in draft history.
Bruce McNall version of things. The Cowboys came through with a $15 million offer for the Rocket late yesterday afternoon. At that point, Bruce McNall, I am told, said, let's get this done tonight. Worked out the deal at the game, and this is what I'm told the Rocket is getting. A $4 million signing bonus, a $4 to $4.5 million a year average on this, which includes the signing bonus, which brings it up to about 18. Well, how do you get to the 26? That's where the inflated value comes about. Apparently, the Rocket is getting 10% of Bruce McNall's 60% of the Toronto Argonauts. Now, that team was bought for $5 million, maybe $3 million. So if you take the present value of 10% of Bruce McNall's 10%, it's not too much. What they're doing is they're allocating a price on that thing based on what they think it'll be worth maybe 10 years from now, and that's where the big inflated number came from. So it was a pretty good deal, and I think that the Rocket can thank Jerry Jones for helping them get it, because apparently before Jerry Jones stepped in with a $15 million deal, it may not have been more than maybe $13 million card cash on the table.
Thank you a lot, Fred. And we'll be having Rockets live press conference out on the West Coast, out from the West Coast in L.A. He'll be talking with us, or talking with everyone, at 3 o'clock. So you want to stay tuned for that. Let's go back now to Chris and company. Chris.
All right, Robin, thank you. If you're wondering who would be throwing the football to the Rocket up for the Toronto Argonauts, Matt Dunnigan, Ricky Foggy were the quarterbacks last year. Dunnigan from Louisiana Tech, Foggy of Minnesota. They scored a lot of points last year, the second highest in the history of the CFL. Just if you're keeping track of the Rocket, Joe, which I think you are.
I think possibly you might want to throw another name in if they're interested in old people.
You?
I'm available. Just thought I'd throw that out, Bruce. I mean, you know, and like I say, I got .2 last time. Anything's an improvement over that, so what the heck.
All right, well, we'll talk more Rocket all afternoon. Let's talk Denver now, Tommy. You wish you were in this draft, don't you?
Well, I think that the Broncos are looking for an outside linebacker who can put some pressure on the passer and do some things outside that a young Tom Jackson may have been capable of doing. I know that Carl Mecklenburg solidifies things on the inside. They may be looking linebacker help outside, Kroll, maybe one of the guys from Colorado, or a big defensive lineman who can help solidify the middle of the football field.
Real quick, Tommy. Denver last year, you know, Super Bowl, all the way down to the 4th pick in the draft. Was that an aberration? They are. Let's put it this way. In the AFC West, there is no question. Raiders getting better. Well, they were in the title game last year. Chiefs getting better. Chargers getting better. Seattle maybe not, but in other words, this is a tough division to be fallen in. Is that an aberration, or are they in for some tough times?
I think it was an aberration of sorts, but I think there were two things that contributed. One, I think you can't overlook what happened against San Francisco in the Super Bowl. I think that it takes maybe a year to recover from that. But I also think that to a certain extent, the Broncos' entire season hinged on 77 seconds in Buffalo, where it was a game that they had won, they were all ready to go home. 77 seconds later, they were 2-2 instead of 3-1, wondering what was going on, and Buffalo went on to the Super Bowl.
It's pretty heavy, 77 seconds.
Yes, it was.
Down, and I'll tell you what, we've had 3 picks thus far. It's all defense. What the Broncos do, we'll know shortly. We mentioned that with Russell Maryland, the first-round pick, the first selection in this draft, that defensive linemen in the 25 years of the common draft have been picked first 8 times, the last being Bruce Smith. 7 quarterbacks, 6 running backs, the last being Bo, 2 linebackers, 1 wide receiver, 1 offensive lineman. They're
baseball's leading men. The Mets' Vince Coleman, the Expos' Delino DeShields. Two of the game's top leadoff men square off when the Mets face the Expos live at 8 Eastern on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball.
Back in New York, the Denver Broncos have made their choice. The commissioner is checking his list, making his list and checking it twice, so to speak. There have never been 4 straight defensive picks to open up the draft. Will this be a precedent setter? 1991. The card is up. The phone is hung up. We'll know.
The Denver Broncos select Mike Kroll, linebacker, Nebraska. Next up, the Los Angeles Rams.
Well, there's always a first time, and so for the first time ever, 4 straight defensive players have gone in this draft. Mike Kroll, a guy that at number 4, Denver was talking up to go to number 2, Mel, to make sure that maybe they would get Mike Kroll. They're ecstatic they didn't have to move, and they still get Nebraska, so Nebraska goes 3-4 the Huskers.
I'll tell you, there was a lot of speculation, Chris, about Cleveland at 2, Atlanta at 3, maybe opting for Kroll. Denver was looking at offers to maybe move up. They stayed at 4, they get Kroll. Tim Lucas and Jeff Mills, a bust last year in the 3rd round to San Diego, are penciled in as the linebackers at Denver going into camp. They needed a guy with this kind of ability off the corner that Kroll supplies, and because of that, they had to go that route. We have a 5th defensive player, the best athlete in the draft, still available in Todd Light. So we're talking about 5 straight defensive players at the top of this draft, with Light being the best overall athlete available this year. Still available at 5 for the Rams, who we thought back when I did the report in early March, late February, that he would end up in L.A.
This note, I mean, Nebraska now has Pickens going 3, and they have Kroll going 4, almost as good as in '84 when they had bang and bang, 1 and 2 out of the gates. Irving Fryer picked first by New England. Dean Steinkuhler, offensive lineman, picked second by Houston. So 2 Huskers in the top 4 picks. Yeah, Rams defense, you'd have to think so.
Well, you're going to a Fisher scheme, a Buddy Ryan scheme, which puts a lot of pressure on the cornerbacks. And all they had there is Jerry Gray, a veteran who was a safety, moved the corner, and he's going to be there, and he'll do well. Opposite Gray, they have nobody at that other cornerback spot. They had a lot of hopes for Darrell Henley from UCLA, former 2nd-round pick. He didn't pan out. Todd Light fits in very well there. Just a point about Mike Kroll. In a normal year, like a last year when we had a strong linebacking class, he's there at 15-20. Since we don't have those super blue chippers at the dominant positions, Denver has to take a 4th pick and pay him that kind of money. So I've talked about value. You're getting value from the 10th pick on down. You're overpaying in the top 10.
Tommy, did you change the spelling of your name to C-R-O-E-L?
No, but he's an outstanding ball player. Even those highlights and watching him, you could see the exceptional quickness that he has, the close to the football, very aggressive player as he chases down backs from behind. That's something that Dan Reeves will like an awful lot. And as you watch these first 4 or 5 picks of the draft, it's obvious that people were focusing in on how that Super Bowl was won last year, and it is defense, defense, defense.
Well, only Cleveland and New England in the AFC gave up more points than the Broncos, and let's face it, you can't be surprised that Kroll being there going to Denver, Joe.
Not at all, and I'll tell you why. They experimented with Carl Mecklenburg last year. They tried to move him to the outside linebacker position that would be the primary pass rush position. What they did is they made him a one-position player. That's bad for Carl Mecklenburg. When you put him one place, that means they can assign a tackle or a back to block him, and it puts a lot of pressure on everybody else. As long as Carl can move around, the Denver Bronco defense has versatility. With the addition of Mike Kroll now, he can be that designated pass rusher and move Carl back inside. Give him the flexibility to bring that defense back to the level it was when they were playing in the Super Bowls.
All right, so defense, 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 defense thus far. The Atlanta Falcons, what's up with the McGwire trade? Speaking of defense, let's go back down and join Gary Danielson in Suwanee. Gary?
All right, thanks, because we don't have anything on the McGwire trade yet, but what's the NFL without this guy? I mean, you got to have Jerry Glanville. It's like doing a rock concert without Madonna. You got to have Jerry Glanville on. All right, Todd Light was on the board. Pickens is on the board. You chose Pickens. Why?
We really took the guy that we thought as an organization was the best bump and run man-to-man with the most speed. We thought after the 40 yards, after the long haul, we needed the fastest guy because everybody knows how we like to play. So we really went for it. We think Light's a good football player, has excellent ability. but we wanted the most speed in the long haul.
All right, what about McGwire now? The word is you offered a 3rd and a 12th, and now up until you sign him with that, up till you take that 3rd-round pick, is the trade still alive?
Well, he has to be signed for the trade to go down. The way the trade's set up, he has to be inked, everything has to be on the contract, and then he too would be one of us. If that doesn't take place, then there is no trade.
All right, now how about this? We got 2 guys from Detroit. We both worked in the factories. Now
Absolutely.
we're in the NFL. We got the whole country watching us.
And we were both on the same football field.
We both were carrying a water bucket at that time.
These people don't realize that I coached you, and that's one reason you never got to start.
All right, what's our cut? Now, do you get a cut every time something like this comes on TV? Your Harley, like a shoe contract, you get a Harley-Davidson contract too?
I'm just trying to get Harley-Davidson to give me a tank of gas so we can keep racing.
All right, what happens the rest of the first round now? What would you like to fill it out with?
Well, really, we can't spell, we're not going to say anything we're going to do there, but I think we'll just stay at 13. We've tried to move that 13 up. We tried to move it down, and it just didn't work out. So we'll stay where we're at, and then we have a plan that we're going to be a good football team.
All right, we'll hope to see you again this
Thank you,
afternoon.
bud.
All right, back to New York. Chris?
All right, Gary and Jerry will all be singing with a twang pretty soon when Jerry comes back and forth. And if he stays at 13, well, probably will get a quarterback that he likes if that's what he wants to do. Let's go Los Angeles Rams, who are now on the board. Now, I got to think. The defense...
The day of the draft, wide receiver and projected #1 pick, Raghib Ismail, signed with the Toronto Argonauts of the Canadian Football League, the CFL. He was nevertheless selected by the Los Angeles Raiders in the 4th round, 100th overall, and began playing with the Raiders, though, in 1993 after 2 CFL seasons.
Jackie Slater and Irv Hanky Panky at the tackles, getting up there in years. Can they not help themselves and go with Big Davis from Tennessee or Charles McCray? I mean, he's your next guy, isn't he? Do they have to go that, or do they go deep?
Well, they're the 2 guys right there, Chris. You have Light, the best overall athlete. You have Antone Davis, who's been a favorite all along of John Robinson. You mentioned Panky and Slater's age. They would love to develop a guy like that, and Antone Davis at tackle. But the question is, can they, to compete against the 49ers and now the Falcons with that red gun, can they compete in that division without a cornerback who can cover? We know their pass rush is suspect, and to pass on Todd Light to take an offensive tackle who will help you down the road, but it's not going to help Robinson this year, I think will be a very, very questionable selection. I think anything other than Light here is a question, a pick that you really have to look very closely at and question, because this is a neat area as well as the best player still there. You have to go Todd Light.
Mel, should we be surprised that... if you go 5th overall in the draft, it's not like, oh, my goodness, you're falling. But, Turner, Pickens, 2 DBs have gone ahead of Todd Light. Is this somewhat eyebrow-raising?
Well, people just didn't like Todd Light's speed. He had never really cracked 4 or 5 in workouts. Another factor was the hamstring. He did not perform well this year. He certainly didn't play like a top 5 pick. He did as a junior, as a sophomore, but he was bothered by the hamstring from the get-go. Some people thought he might sit out most of the year because of it. He didn't. He was out there. He got a lot of bad bounces in the end zone, balls that he picked off or were picked off by a teammate, were not. They went for touchdowns, and just a lot of bad breaks. The hamstring pull, he didn't support. He wasn't as aggressive as recent years. And like I said, the fact that when people looked at Rod Woodson, 10th pick overall a few years ago with his 4.25 speed and his great all-around ability, they look at Todd Light, who might be the 2nd, 3rd, 4th player taken. They paled in comparison, and because of that, people got off of Todd Light a little bit.
And you know who's very interested in this is the man with the next pick, Joe Bugle, because if the Rams do go Light, then he'll have his pick of offensive tackles, Antone Davis. We think that's where they want to go. Todd Light didn't have the year that he could have, but again, I mean, who are we to judge a hamstring? I mean, you don't know, right?
I was never fast enough to pull a hamstring, so I don't worry about judging hamstrings. I really believe that they have to go corner. It's something that defense has needed so bad. When you take a look at the depth chart, Jerry Gray plays the corner, Darrell Henley plays the corner, Michael Stewart's there, and Anthony Newman. So the addition of Todd Light gives them an opportunity to be able to put somebody out on the corner and feel a lot more comfortable with their secondary coverage. The division has got speed in it. The game has gone to passing. The game has gone to speed at the wide receiver position. You've got to have guys not only that can run on the corner, but Light brings something a little bit different. He brings a little bit of height at 6'1".
All right, of course, Gray coming off the injury, too. So the Rams, you got to cover. But this division is not what it once was. So maybe well, we'll continue to shed some light on the Los Angeles Rams pick in a moment when we return.
We have 4 picks that have been selected for the first time ever, all defensive players. Russell Maryland going first to the Cowboys, followed by Eric Turner, the defensive back out of UCLA, going to the Browns. Bruce Pickens, the cornerback, going to the Falcons, and Mike Kroll, the linebacker out of Nebraska, going to the Broncos. The Rams are on the clock. They have just over 3 minutes to make that selection. They thought they were going to have Russell Maryland, Freddie, but of course he's gone to the Cowboys. What's the latest news with the Rams?
Well, Robin, I was told all week that the Rams were going to take Russell Maryland if he was there, and if he wasn't there, that it would be likely that they would make a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles for Jerome Brown, who new defensive coordinator Jeff Fisher coached with the Eagles. I know they're also talking to Detroit about Jerry Ball. Well, now Russell Maryland isn't there, so does that mean Jerome Brown goes to the Rams? One thing that is really complicating this situation is that Todd Light is there, and they never thought that Todd Light would be there, so I think that's part of their decision-making process. Now, I'm told if the Eagles make this deal, that they will probably take Antonio Davis, maybe Charles McCray, one of the 2 big Tennessee tackles.
Thank you, Freddie. Now, Todd Light continues to fall. Chris, what do you hear about what the Rams will do?
I'd be stunned if Jerome Brown went to the Rams in a trade. If John Robinson had this pick, and he doesn't necessarily have it, it would be Anton Davis, the Tennessee offensive tackle. Todd Light's mixed things up a little bit, but Anton Davis is the guy that John Robinson would like to take here.
For more on the situation, let's go to Chris Myers in Irving, Texas. He's at the headquarters of the Dallas Cowboys. Chris.
Thanks very much, Robin. We spoke to the Eagles this morning. They have no interest in trading Jerome Brown, so that deal with the Rams is dead as of this moment. The Rams wanted to go defense all along, moving to their 4-3 defense that Jeff Fisher, of course, will operate coming from the Eagles. Linebacker Kevin Green will move to an end. They wanted Maryland for some inside help. He's not in the picture. They need defense, so Todd Light would be the pick to help that tight coverage. John Robinson, of course, has a little more control this year than in previous Ram drafts with John Shaw, so there may be some debate thinking about replacing offensive tackle Jackie Slater in just a few years. Jackie Slater will wrap. Antoine Davis is their top lineman, followed by McCray and then Harlow, but the Rams got to be thinking defense, and we'll find out who they pick in just a moment. Let's go back to Chris Berman in New York.
All right, Chris, the pick is up. The commissioner has the card, the Los Angeles Rams. Do they become the first team to draft offense, or do they become 5 in a row for D? We'll know.
The Los Angeles Rams select Todd Light, defensive back, Notre Dame. The 5th consecutive defensive player selected in this draft. Next up, Phoenix Cardinals.
And there is Todd here in New York. Congratulations, young man. He's going up to the podium, and so they couldn't get one Notre Dame guy here in New York, and guess what? We got the next best available Irishman. Sorry, Joe.
Thanks a lot.
And so Todd Light, chosen by the Los Angeles Rams, hugging his mom and dad, young man from Maryland. Class all the way. That's his agent, Bob Wolf. And in that scheme of agents, that's as class as you get to. So Todd Light becomes the 5th straight player chosen on defense, becomes the 3rd defensive back of the top 5, and so there's no smoke screen with Todd Light. He is now chosen by the Los Angeles Rams, and so Rams, I mean, I got to think now that they don't go offensive line here. You can mark them down for the first 5 or 6 selections they have in this draft as defense all the way. And here's Todd Light meeting the commissioner and the Rams cap. What a proud moment this is. You worked so hard to get to this point, your first-round selection in the NFL draft. His dreams of getting to this point now, move them over again. Number 1 pick of the Rams. And the Rams hope he is the guy that can help them become number 1. Certainly in their division, he's going to have some pretty good guys to cover when they play the 49ers twice every year, that's for sure. But Todd Light has covered the best in college football, not to equate them with Jerry Rice and John Taylor right now, but not to mention Rison and the guys at Atlanta, but he plays and he's not afraid.
The thing about Todd Light is you see his stickability, but the fact is here's a kid who played well in the All-Star games. The important thing about him is he's played in a big football games. He understands what it's all about. He has the ability to cover one-on-one, and it's not going to be a system that is just going to throw it on his shoulders. They'll work him in. What they'll do with all these cornerbacks that are drafted in the first round is they'll do what the Buffalo did with Jamie Williams last year. They'll let him play in the nickel. They'll let him get comfortable. He'll work his way in 2 or 3 years. But John Robinson figures one way to stop the the dam that's been broken out there in Los Angeles is to put somebody in the secondary so they can at least stop people if they can't outscore them at times.
Mel?
Say, here's the guy, Chris, when you look at Todd Light, that when he was recruited by Notre Dame, they thought he could be another Timmy Brown, Jerry Rice-type wide receiver at the college level. A great wide out, great athletic ability. You saw his hands with the interception, the way he maneuvers in the open field after the catch. And as a defensive back in the Ram system, he's ideal with that one-on-one coverage ability. He'll work opposite Jerry Gray and hopefully be able to match up against a team like the 49ers in that same division.
So the Los Angeles Rams, who a couple years ago were in the title game, but last year found themselves on the downside looking up. Hope to look up with Todd Light. We'll be back.
Introducing Michigan City Chrysler Plymouth Jeep Eagle. Leading off, the 91 LeBaron convertible with cashback or 4.9 financing. Batting second is the Plymouth Acclaim, also with cashback or low financing. Third, the 91 Jeep with cashback or great financing. And batting cleanup, the Chrysler Imperial with cashback or 4.9 financing. That's the heavy hitters from Michigan City Chrysler Plymouth Jeep Eagle.
Another good morning.
We are back at the Marriott Marquis in New York. Live coverage, 6.5 hours here of the NFL draft. And so we've gone 5 defensive players. The Phoenix Cardinals are the next team up. And one of the most intriguing stories in this or any other year is the young man, 300-pound plus defensive lineman, 20 years of age, Eric Swan, who never played college football, played for a team in a league that's now defunct, minor league football, the Bay State Titans. Does he go in the first round? Well, I'll tell you what, we know he's on the phone with the Phoenix Cardinals. Very interesting. No witch himself in Salem, Massachusetts is our Jimmy Roberts. James?
Well, just returned from the phone. It's raining terribly up here.
Russell Maryland was the first pick in the 1991 NFL draft. No previous draft had begun with more than 3 consecutive defensive picks.
Living in Massachusetts for quite some time now. Just got off the phone with Larry Wilson. It's entirely possible that you may be selected. What can you tell us?
I'm very anxious. It's a very anxious moment for me, and I really thank God for being in this situation. A couple of years ago, a year ago, I was about raking leaves in North Carolina and hoping, dreaming where I'm going to be at this point in time. But now it's pretty solidified that I'm going to be here, and I'm very anxious. And I thank God for my family, mom, my girlfriends, and all my fans for my support. And I'm just really ready to get down to business and play football.
Even though it was an aberration, the 6th pick in last year's draft made $3.6 million.
Yeah, that's
Can you give us some kind of an indication as to how that compares to $5 an hour raking leaves?
There's no comparison at all, Jimmy. Really, $6 an hour is not a lot of money at all. Most people think so, but, working in the lower level of working type thing. But up here, this type of money is really great, and I tend to do some very exciting things with the money, send myself to school, for instance, and
I'm going to have my
take care of my family and take care of myself and my future family.
Hold on.
All right, there are a lot of people asking questions about, you've not played college football, you've not competed at this level. What makes you think that that you can compete?
Well, I'm 6'4", 311 pounds, running 40 and 4.89, and how many 300-pound defensive linemen can do that? Not any, I don't think. But really, basically, I can really see nothing about it at all. Just prove it to you. That's all I can do.
All right, Eric Swan. So we'll wait and take a look. But right now, we'll go back to New York and Chris Berman.
All right, Jimmy and Eric, thank you very much. Really, Mel, of all the years in covering the draft, this has got to be the most intriguing, because how can you go from the Bay State Titans to perhaps be the 6th pick of the draft, or at least go in the first round? You and I both felt for sure he would go in the first round. Is it just because there aren't any great pass rushers? Tell me about the 313 pounds, but he runs like the wind. You've just contradicted yourself.
Runs better than most linebackers, Chris. You're talking about a guy that is an aberration. He's not your normal 20-year-old Bay State Titan football player. He's 6'4" and 5/8". He's 313 pounds. And normally, I don't care if it's the #1 pick from USC, you don't see a kid on the defensive line that big. Just look at the #1 pick in this draft. Russell Maryland, 6'1", 6'3", 270. This kid's bigger, he's faster, only 20 years of age, I think, is to his benefit. When you see what he can do with coaching, and you see the attitude, he's a great young man, only 20 years of age, and you put that all together and you look at the history of the draft with all the Sean Knights and Ted Gregory's that busted out completely, that played at the major universities and did nothing to substantiate that at the pro level. I've always said, what is the risk? At worst, this kid's going to be a great run stopper. At best, the best case scenario, a Bruce Smith type. And like I said earlier, Chris, if you're talking about a guy who had played 3 or 4 years at NC State where he originally signed a letter of intent, there's no doubt in my mind he'd have torn it up the ACC and probably been the #1 pick overall.
Now, he's not going to Phoenix yet, who, of course, I would think are debating between him and Anton Davis, a tackle from Tennessee. But if there is a gamble to be made, you either need more than 1 first-round pick, have a team with a little moxie, so to speak, or have a team of an interesting drafting history, and we found one with the Phoenix Cardinals. Eric Swan, can a guy who's 20 years old make it in the National Football League, Tommy?
Well, I think he has such great natural gifts. I watched him on film, and I haven't seen a big guy like that, 313 pounds, who can accelerate the way he can. I mean, it is scary. It's going to take a coach with some patience. I think you have to teach him technique. But once you can teach this kid technique, I don't think there's any stopping him. And I don't really see a risk to this kid. He's 20 years old. He's got the time to learn. If you've got the time to teach him, there's no stopping him.
And Phoenix, a team that improved a lot last year, first year under Joe Bugle, or whoever takes him. Is this as big a reach as some think, Joe?
I don't think it's as big a reach as people think. Number one, what are you doing when you take a first-round pick out of college? It's like being a freshman again anyway. You got to teach him to play with the big boys, so he's mature enough to be able to compete. This kid played for nothing. His attitude is sensational. He wants to be a football player. He's elated. He's thrilled just to be considered for it. If he goes someplace, the team that gets him is going to be very lucky. The only thing that's going on in Phoenix is you got Joe Bugle, who's a builder of offensive linemen, one of the best in the business. He might be able to influence Larry Wilson a little bit and say, geez, let's try for the offensive lineman. Maybe Swan will be there later. I think they should take Swan now. Also, when you look at defenses today, you don't see full-time tackles. You don't see full-time ends. The best you get is a guy that goes in for a few plays, comes back out. So there's really not that much of a risk to teach him to learn how to play if he's going to take 30 snaps a game. I think it's a terrific opportunity, not only for Swan, but for the Cardinals.
So the Cards have 5 minutes in which to use their selection. Another note about Eric Swan. He sent letters, his agent Dick Bell, to every team saying, you don't have to pay me necessarily what the number 5, number 6 pick in this case of the draft might normally command. That's got to raise some eyebrows too. So you save and you get maybe a little bit of a project. That's what's going on in the Cardinals' heads right now. We'll be back.
Well, welcome back to New York City, site of the NFL draft. The Cardinals are on the clock. They have just over 2 minutes to go before making their selection, the 6th selection of this year's draft. And back with me is college football analyst Mike Gottfried. At Pittsburgh and other places where you coached, you had high school students come in and make the transition from high school ball to collegiate ball. Eric Swan hasn't played a lick of collegiate football. How is he going to make the transition to the NFL?
Well, it's going to be a very difficult transition for him. It's just like if he took it back to college and he recruited in college. When I was at Kansas, we had to study a lot of 8-man football teams. Well, John Riggins or Nolan Cromwell, one of those two players came out of an 8-man program, and you know what he did in the pros. But if you had to compare taking somebody on an 8-man football program or somebody who's a top draft or a top recruit out of Los Angeles or Florida, you'd take the top recruit. I think the toughest thing for pro personnel on Eric Swan is really they don't have film on him. They don't have anything to evaluate against him. So I think it's a very tough pick, and the person who makes the pick better be an established person, because if it doesn't work, then somebody's going to be questioned for the rest of time. But if he is an established guy, he could take a risk here. Who knows how to work out? But I've had people tell me that Eric Swan would be an offensive guard in pro football. So it'll be interesting. It's a tough transition.
I bet it is. And he has talked with the Phoenix Cardinals, so he could be the selection. And that is coming up. They have about a minute and a half to make that selection. Back to Chris and company.
All right, Robin, thank you. So all we've talked about thus far is defense in the draft. And you know, Eric Swan, you're wondering, well, did he get some decent coaching last year at the Bay State Titans? Who the heck could have coached him? Ray Sugar Bear Hamilton, very good nose tackle for a lot of years with the New England Patriots. Now hired on Williams' staff now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That was his coach at the Bay State Titans. Under a minute for the Cardinals to make this pick in the first round. Whether Eric Swan goes here or not, well, wait a minute. We will continue that discussion in a minute, Mel, or we'll conjecture. The conjecture may be over for the Cards. because the Cards have the card, and it's on its way to the podium.
Well, we had heard offensive tackle. They went to see Davis. They went to see McRae. And they also, by the way, went up to Lynn, Massachusetts to talk to Eric Swan. So we know it's what we talked about, offensive tackle or Eric Swan's a possibility. Wherever he goes, the story will continue with Eric Swan.
And Davis being larger than his teammate McRae, the other bookend tackle of Tennessee, Joe Bugle, if they go offensive line. That's got to be their guy, but will this be Swan's song? We'll see.
The Phoenix Cardinals select Eric Swan, defensive line. Next up, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
There we go. Hey, congratulations.
Okay, hey.
Eric, come here. Eric. Surprised?
Very surprised, very surprised. I'm just like I said before, I'm ready to play football and get a start in life and get to do something I very enjoy much.
What about the people you're going to join, the Phoenix? If you can gather your thoughts here for a minute, the Phoenix Cardinals, there are some people there that you can learn from. Fritz Shermer, defensive coordinator, maybe Dexter Manley, a couple of people who, since you haven't had the tutelage to this point, the formal tutelage, something that you can learn from these people?
That's true. I would say it won't take very long for me to pick up techniques and or even what is needed to make it in the NFL. You know, I'm on my way to Phoenix as soon as possible and get, you know, basically down-pack the techniques and the learning and get ready for training. And hopefully be on the starting lineup. Who knows?
What are you going to do with your first paycheck?
Go to school.
You are going to go to school. Let's talk about school for a second, because that's been such a big part of the story of you. You took your SAT so many times, you weren't able to complete them successfully for admission. Do you feel like you got screwed by the system?
No, not really. Yeah, I just got caught up in the system. I didn't really get screwed by the system, but you know, I really don't want to quote on that at all. But basically, I'm just really happy right now, and $25,000 will be set aside for my educational fund, and basically, I'm happy, point blank.
A lot of people have asked me this week, why didn't this guy go Proposition 48? You had the choice. You could have done that.
Well, you know, I thought I was a better student than that until the SAT beat me, and you know, I had pretty good grades coming out of high school, and I decided to sit out and retake the test, but obviously not. I didn't pass it, so you know, time went on. So I met the Titans, and the Titans to the NFL.
All right, Eric Swan, the 6th pick in the draft, 6 picks. 6 defensive picks.
The first offensive pick in the 1991 NFL Draft was Charles McGwire for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
So much for speculation on Eric Swan. It took 6 picks. None of us have to work for Fred Edelstein. Isn't that a relief? We said he would go in the first round.
Thank you all for watching this video, and it was a W Draft.